Hey everybody, this is Eric Bratcher, Editor-in-Chief of Games Radar US, and you're watching the 20 most important games of the decade.
Clearly, the thing about Wind Waker that separates it from all other Zelda games, and most games in general, is the look and the graphics. Nintendo defied everybody's expectations and went with what some people call kiddie and cartoony, but to me, as soon as I saw it, it looked like a Disney movie brought to life, a Disney animation that you're going to be in control of. The Wind Waker is the only reason I have a Nintendo GameCube, and it's one of only, I think, 3 or 4 games I have played on the GameCube, and I feel totally justified in the money I spent on it. I don't regret buying an entire system just for that one game.
Who's there? Come on! I didn't touch her!
It's strange that a lot of hardcore shooter fans still don't get on with BIOSHOCK, but basically they're playing it wrong. BIOSHOCK looks like an FPS, but it's actually a very deep RPG, purely based from a first-person perspective. And in doing that, it laid the way for the likes of Borderlands and Fallout 3.
BIOSHOCK is a really hard game to talk about because it did so many things that are new. It's hard to focus in on one thing. It just seems hard to believe that it all worked when you look back at it in retrospect.
Rather than just showing a load of pretty graphics or a nice bit of cel shading and some line-drawn artwork the way most games try to pass themselves off as art, BRAID actually uses the core mechanics of games to create something genuinely artistic and meaningful, back in the way that Eisenstein and Dali did when they first started experimenting with the way you can put film together.
It's creative and innovative, and it basically approached a very old type of gameplay with very fresh ideas. And I think because of that, and because of the weirdness of the story, and because of the perceived artsiness of it, it captured a lot of people's imaginations.
It just does everything so perfect, and he's got like the best character, the best lead character in Nathan Drake, who's like got bags of personality. He is actually funny, and the scripting and the chemistry between the characters is just amazing.
There's a hotel not far from here.
Chloe, now is not the time.
It's easily the tallest building in the city.
Right.
So with a game like Uncharted 2, it's a little more difficult to argue for its significance or its impact in the overall scheme of things. But what it kind of represents is it's taking the decade out with a bang.
The portal will open in 3, 2, 1.
The tagline of "Now You're Thinking with Portal" seemed a little bit cheesy before the game came out, but when you realise that you actually have to engineer a whole new kind of spatial awareness that you've never had to deal with before, it made complete sense.
You've just got to look at the intro sequence to the game where Feeder's playing, and you've got all the cars coming up and the red car coming up over the hill, and it just looks spectacular. And I'm certain if you were to put that in HD and release it today, changing nothing else, then you still have yourself a hit.
The funny thing is, I can't drive, I don't know what makes cars work, I don't know a Corsa from a Chevrolet, but I still really love this game.
Your appointment to FEMA should be finalized within the week. I've already discussed the matter with the senator.
I take it he was agreeable?
He didn't really have a choice.
Has he been infected?
Oh yes.
All-out killing, laying traps. You can even play the entire game in a completely non-violent way without killing anyone if you're really, really careful.
I'll have Smuggler get me to Hong Kong. He owes me a favor. You meet Jock in Battery Park.
There's some NPCs you'll never even meet on your first playthrough. And if any of them are pissing you off, you can just shoot them in the face, and by some sort of miracle, the game will adapt the story and change it around you to fit what you've just done.
Morrowind was one of the first worlds where you got the impression that everything was going to go on and keep moving, and people were going to keep living and dying, and animals were going to keep attacking people in the wilderness, whether you were there or not. It really didn't care if you were playing or not. It was a world and it was going to live regardless of you.
It's a relatively obscure game to include on this list, but without Morrowind and its success, there's no Oblivion, there's no Fallout 3, there's no Borderlands. This really kind of introduced a lot of people to this idea of hybrid role-playing games.
1 minute. Go.
Easily the Tetris of this generation, so addictive that 9 out of 10 smack addicts say that it's just as addictive as the drugs that they're putting into their arms.
Bejeweled broke through in a way that no other game had before, except for Tetris. Possibly one of the Mario games, but Bejeweled, it's instantly accessible. You watch someone play Bejeweled for 15 seconds, you've learned how to play Bejeweled.
Kawashima's Brain Training was pretty much one of the first games that made DS relevant to every member of the family. For a time, you could walk down the street and see businessmen, old ladies in mobility carts, tramps, cats, dogs, pretty much anyone could be seen stabbing a DS, trying to do maths.
You can't look at a DS shelf without these exact kind of games, and Brain Training was the start of it, and also the start of Nintendo's just the Wii Sports, Wii Fit, Wii Music, like all that kind of stuff. It all started with Brain Training, and obviously has gone on, just like those games, to be a massive success. And they made a Brain Training 2, I think there's 3 or more in Japan, and everywhere you go, it's a basic idea that Nintendo did very right.
In the 2 weeks leading up to the game's European release, which I think was in March 2002, I was sad enough, and this will make me sound like a complete raving mentalist, but every night before I went to bed I watched the TGS 2001 trailer, Tokyo Game Show, and the E3 2001 trailer. That was the last thing I'd do before I go to bed.
Metal Gear Solid 2, it was was one of the first games that really validated the PlayStation 2 and the promise that it held. You know, I remember being at E3 when they debuted the trailer to Metal Gear Solid 2. And it was one of those things where it was running on a big screen, and I think they ran it every half hour or every 20 minutes or something. But every time it ran, a big crowd of people would stop and just stare at it and watch it, and traffic would get all backed up around it and you couldn't walk around that area. But it happened to me too. Anytime that video was on, didn't matter if I'd seen it 10 times that day already, I had to stop and look at it.
Freeze! I said freeze! Vaya por detrás.
Resident Evil 4 deserves to be on this list purely because I think it represents the most successful reinvention of a series in the last 10 years. Certainly the most important thing about Resident Evil 4, the most important individual component was the behind-the-shoulder cam, which had never really been done before. Couple that with the context-sensitive aiming. It's arguably spawned its own subgenre, which the likes of Gears of War and Uncharted and Dead Space now sit in.
The legacy of Resident Evil 4 is its over-the-shoulder aiming, which we all know now. Any third-person action game you play now has this thing. You're walking a third-person game, you can see most of your character. You hold a button, they bring the gun up like this, the camera always ends up over here, right behind your shoulder, and you're kind of looking out like this. That RE4 made that a staple, and that went into Dead Space, Gears of War, GTA 4, Mass Effect, name it.
Guitar Hero was the first time that a game was built around its peripheral, specifically, I think. Just holding a little plastic guitar. It's like air guitar in that, you know, you just have to do the motions, but then you've actually got some buttons to press as well, and you really start to feel like you're playing guitar.
We had a lot of discussion about the Guitar Hero series, whether Guitar Hero was the most important entry or whether it was Frequency and Amplitude, which were very similar and were from the same developer but came out earlier. And we settled on Guitar Hero because the Guitar Hero is like the ultimate wish fulfillment game. You know, everybody at some point has thought about being on stage and it's a crowd of people screaming at them, and you know, you hit that note and you do the horns and everybody flips out, right? But it's hard. That's a very hard life. It's hard to learn to play guitar. But then you get Guitar Hero, and it's that experience in a bottle, well, in a box.
Incredible writing, a complete lack of any sort of disassociating cutscenes, an unbelievable character animation. It took believability in a game world to a whole new level. Basically, if you're not planning your wedding with Alex by the end of the game, there's something very wrong with you.
Gordon! I had a feeling I'd find you here. I've got Dr. Kleiner in a safe spot. Now we can join up with Barney.
The release of Half-Life 2 was almost like a new console in and of itself. It created the mod community that popped up from all over the place. Like, you know, when a Nintendo console comes out, you know you're going to expect Mario and Zelda and Metroid. And when a new Half-Life comes out, you knew you were going to expect a new Team Fortress, a new Counter-Strike. And all the stuff that went off that Source engine, Left 4 Dead, Portal, like, there was just, Half-Life 2 was just, Half-Life 2 is like the console itself. It's like, that's why the release was anticipated so much.
Weapons free. Bridge secure. Stairs clear. Last call.
I think the main thing with Call of Duty Modern Warfare is that it really brought war games out of the trenches up until Infinity Ward gave us Modern Warfare. Most of the time we've been running around throwing stick grenades at Nazis, which is fine, but it was nice to do something that seemed a bit more contemporary. I'd also remember Modern Warfare for being a game that my girlfriend disliked intensely, and I'd probably say that goes for a lot of wives and girlfriends out there, woken up by the sound of gunfire and the announcement that UAV is online. I'm sure they didn't enjoy that particularly.
Every mission is just full throttle, constantly being surprised, constantly being amazed by the scope of it and the, you know, just the massive action sequences, and then they play with, you know, the gameplay. They play with sort of the mechanics and the customs of first-person shooters.
Tell that to the Covenant.
Halo 2 deserves to be on the list purely because it really, not invented, but really cemented online gaming on consoles, which certainly had never managed to rival the depth of the sense of community that PC gamers had always enjoyed before then.
Why would we pick Halo 2 instead of Halo 1? I think that's pretty obvious to people that were around when Halo 2 came out. Halo 1 had good multiplayer, but Halo 2 was the one that brought on to Xbox Live and turned console multiplayer into what it is today, this huge thing that rivals, you know, PC multiplayer.
The Sims, I think you could say, is kind of the ultimate triumph of Will Wright and Maxis, its creators, because it's the first game to really convincingly create you know, artificial characters that feel like real people to a degree. I mean, they've always kind of been caricatures of real people, but they were the first that, like, really you control their every action, you control their lives, you decide what jobs they get, you decide when they go to the bathroom, when they eat. And they can be kind of a pain in the ass, actually, because there's nothing they love to do more than just ping pong between the toilet and the refrigerator, especially in the first game.
Everybody knows about The Sims as this huge franchise that came along and kind of took over casual gaming, or made gaming way more casual before the Wii came along. I mean, now you go to Target, you see 20 expansion packs for Sims 2 and for Sims 3 and even for Sims 1, and you know that your mom is playing it and your sister are playing it, and it's just become this huge, huge, multi-million casual phenomenon.
You can say what you want about Wii Sports, but the fact is that when it came into the office and we first had our hands-on with Wii, the amazing thing was, when you're sat at your desk, all you could hear around you was the sounds of people having fun. And, you know, games journalists obviously enjoy their job, you know, we're in the industry because we love games, but never before would you listen in the office and you just hear the sound of people having a great time. And that's what Wii Sports did when it came in.
launching the system and this whole new way to play games with this very distinct, not distinct, obvious baseball simulator that all you have to do is this, or boxing, or just miming simple things. It became this easily accessible game for absolutely everyone. You didn't have to be a hardcore gamer. You could have not played a game since Pac-Man, and you'd be able to walk right into this game and within a few minutes of playing know just as much as someone who's been playing for 20 years. It was a great equalizer in that regard.
So I'm a pretty casual WoW player. I inherited a level 70 Tauren warrior that I run around with my friends. So I've kind of been able to see like the social aspect of how important WoW is as a game in the last 10 years. Like I've seen people, you know, become boyfriend girlfriend to eventually become married. I've seen friendships break up. I've seen friendships form. I think just the social aspect of that entire game is just huge, and I think they've basically set the bar on what MMORPGs have to be in order to succeed.
For me, at least, it was one of the first games where I found myself actually forming friendships with people that I played this game with in a way that I hadn't since the days of bulletin board systems and chat rooms. You know, when you start making friends in an MMO, games like World of Warcraft, they really make you feel like people are depending on you.
Remember, no one messes with my girls. So keep your hands on the wheel. If you don't mess this up, maybe there'll be more work for you. Now get out of here.
You simply can't underestimate the importance of Grand Theft Auto 3 to the games of the last decade. The really incredible thing about Grand Theft Auto 3 was the way in which people tackled missions differently. No one completed a mission in the same way. I'll never forget that sense of liberation I got the first time I played Grand Theft Auto 3, driving around this huge open world city with its own pulse and rhythms. That and discovering you could have sex with prostitutes.
You know the donut, I'm hungry.
I was a fan of the first couple GTAs, and I remember thinking, man, this would be so great if it were only, you know, in 3D, if it was like other games in that respect, because frankly, even then, the whole top-down proposition was kind of a little boring and dated. But it's like, well, this is great because, you know, I can go anywhere, do anything, I can drive any car that I see, but it still kind of sucks. And then GTA 3 took that away, and it was basically, for those of us who played mostly on consoles, it was bigger than we imagined a game really could be. Like, it just seemed such an impossible feat to create a free-roaming 3D game, and it was just the fact that they delivered this and they managed to deliver on all their promises. It wasn't just like a janky, oh well, here's the first generation of this technology and it kind of sucks. It was a genuinely good game.